Welcome back to another episode of On a Mission. I'm your host, Dr. Wendy Norfleet with Norfleet Integrated Solutions, and it is my pleasure to have with me today Johnathan Lightfoot with Symbiont Incorporated. Welcome, Johnathan.
Good morning.
So, Johnathan, a lot of people may not be familiar with Symbiont, but before we start talking about that, let's talk a little bit about yourself, your background.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about you.
Wow.
Whatever you want us to know in a minute or two.
I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I spent 9 years in the United States Navy. After I left the Navy, I kind of found my way into IT, information technology, where I worked at a lot of companies. I worked for this little known cruise line called Norwegian Cruise Line.
Little known.
Little known. Did that for about 8 years, where I worked in headquarters for a year, and I did the next 7 years as a systems manager on board the ships. That has to be my funnest job I ever did.
And you were doing the systems there?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you for your service. But it's really interesting because we just had this conversation yesterday about IT and how it touches every field. And a lot of people, when they talk about cruise lines, they don't realize that there's a lot of IT running a cruise line. Just like, with golf, there's a lot of IT, baseball, things like that. And so I'm glad you had something a little bit different. So I know Symbiont is a family-started business.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. I know you focus on cybersecurity, but tell us kind of your slant on cybersecurity.
Okay. So, yeah, Symbiont, we are a 37-year-old company. It was started by my grandfather back in 1985. I am third generation to run the company now. We provide a lot of services, started off with federal contracting.
Okay.
So as I tell people, if you can think of any federal agency, more than likely Symbiont has done business with them. And we've done managed and professional services from IT training back in 1985, started with IT training, all the way over to system development, software development, project management. One of our hallmark projects that we did was we actually rewired or installed Cat 5 into the White House.
Oh, wow.
And when I say the White House, I mean the whole thing.
Okay.
And that was a pretty exciting assignment. Right now, we do a lot of work with DoD around the areas of reporting and business analysis and things like that. We've done the entire lifespan, if you will, of IT. We've pulled cables in buildings, as I alluded to earlier, to, like I said, designing entire system architect things. Now, we've also done work with state and federal, state and local governments, as well as commercial business as well.
Okay. And so one of the things I know about your company is that you really focus on the whole systems life cycle. And for people who may not know that, that's just like from the ideal generation to actually implementation and maintenance.
Yes.
And so one of the things that you focus on is helping people understand their part in it. Because, you can go have the best IT in the world. If people are not following it, it just doesn't work.
Yes. That comes from our own personal experience of IT. It, as you said earlier, it affects every part of a business or an organization. And it's more than just, when I started back in the 90s, right, of a bunch of IT people in a room, we do some magical stuff and we spit it out to the organization. Now it is very much focused around business processes. And we have to touch from the executive suite all the way over to the people in the field even. And also we try to make sure that all of our solutions are holistic, that IT is doing what they need to do so that, accounting gets their information, the project management offices get their information, executive staff get their information all around. And we also make sure that, and we're designing the software, or if we're even implementing software, that we're training everybody along the way so they know what their role is, and also a little bit of what other roles are so they can see how it all fits into the bigger picture.
Okay. And I think that's really important because I work with a couple of organizations where when they're ready to interview them, their participants, so I help out with mock interviews. And it's so funny because when I give them a scenario, and if it's not something very specific, sometimes they have trouble synthesizing the information. And so I think it's really important for everybody to understand how everything fits together.
Yes, very much, especially in today's world. We hear a lot about cybersecurity, and traditionally people think of cybersecurity, they think it's IT.
Right.
IT, if you really look at the bigger picture of cybersecurity, IT's role is very small, right? They can make some configuration changes, implement a couple of things. But if you look at all of cybersecurity in an organization, especially, everybody, the board of directors to the executive suite, to the VPs, to the directors, it doesn't matter if you're in IT, HR, finance, everybody has a role to play. And when we implement or we'll go in and we assist companies, we like to start with the whole, what are your plans and what are your policies? What do you have, right?
Right.
I remember back in my days, and you probably remember this too, is IT. If you tell me to make it secure, I can make it secure.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean you can work it.
Right. It's right. And then also secure at that moment because, of course, newer technology come out too.
Yes.
And that's the whole thing. People think, people are lying because they said it's secure and somebody got in, but it's like, hey, it was secure, but newer technology comes out.
Exactly. You can't just set it and forget it nowadays. And we start off, like I said, with the policies, the procedures, and this isn't even dealing with IT at this point. This is the executive level saying, okay, here's what our stance are. Here are our gates, which later on become the KPIs for an organization.
And then disseminating that throughout the organization.
Exactly.
Wow. That sounds great. So if, let me ask you one question, then I'm going to give you a chance to let people know how to reach you. What size businesses? Is it any size businesses that you work with, or you work with a certain size?
We can. We have worked with Fortune 100 companies before.
You work with smaller companies too?
But my specialty, I like the small to medium-sized businesses.
And that's usually needs the most help too.
Exactly. They're the ones who need the most help. They're the ones who a lot of the large organizations don't even want to touch because they don't have the budgets for them and stuff. But we tend to work with those a lot more, and it's a little more agile.
That's great. So now, this is the question. If people want to reach out to you, if they want to learn more about your services or work with you, how do they reach you?
Well, we have our website. That is www.symbiont.com. You can also call us. It's 301-650-0069.
Okay.
Sorry. I always add an extra zero in there.
Okay.
We are headquartered in Silver Spring, Maryland. However, I'm in Jacksonville.
Right. I knew that.
This is where I do all of my work at. But we can affect or touch any place in the country, almost in the world, if we get a call. So we're not limited by geo.
All right. Well, Johnathan, thank you so much for sharing information about your company with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. And to learn more about Symbiont Incorporated, please go to www.symbiont.com. And we'll see you next time on Buzz TV.